Would I recommend a Carnival cruise to anyone? The answer is in this video, I'm going to talk about my experience on a Carnival cruise. I'm going to talk about the 5 great things and the 5 not so great things about our cruise. My cruise was with my sister and we went to celebrate her 50th birthday. We went on the Carnival Miracle cruise and that was in December. So the first really great thing about the cruise is that it was cheap. We were going in December and we were actually going to Los Angeles because we were going to Disneyland, and we decided that if we found a cruise that fit the time scale that we were going, then we would go. So we found this 4-day cruise with Carnival. It was a 4-day cruise to Mexico and it was cheap. It was around $100 a night, and so we thought, yeah, we'll book it. Because the cruise was so cheap, we actually upgraded to a balcony cabin. Normally we go for the inside because it's the cheapest room to get. But because that was so cheap and it only cost us a few more dollars per night, we decided we would upgrade to a balcony. And I'm really glad we did, because the room was nice and spacious and it was nice to have a balcony, especially when you're in the warm weather. The great thing about going on a Carnival cruise is the diversity of passengers on the cruise. In other words, on this cruise, there are other black people. On most of the cruises that we go on, there are not that many other nationalities. So it was really nice to see a great mixture of people on this cruise. There were lots of black people, there were lots of Hispanics, as well as white people. So it was a nice mixture of different types of people, which was really great to see. I think that when you get a really diverse mixture of people, you get a different atmosphere on a cruise, and I could tell that this was a really different style compared to the type of cruises that we've been on in the past. Another thing on this cruise is that the average age was lower than our usual cruises, and I would say that the average age on this cruise was around 40 to 50 years old, with of course still people who are younger with kids and also older people on the cruise. But I'd say, yeah, the average age was around 40 to 50 years old. And of course, because this cruise was from America, the majority of the people on the cruise were American. I'm not quite sure how many non-Americans were actually on the cruise. It's difficult to tell, and of course I didn't go and ask, so I'm not quite sure. But yeah, the majority of the people on this cruise were Americans. And also being on a cruise where the majority of the passengers are American, that gives you a different atmosphere and a different way of cruising. So that made it really interesting as well. The next good thing about the Carnival cruise is that there was an anytime dining option. And this means that you can choose to eat your dinner at any time you want. On most cruises, you have 2 set dining times, and that means you have to go either on the early sitting or the late sitting. And I suppose that is an advantage for the cruises because it means that everyone is getting fed at the same time. That means that the staff are all working at one time, the kitchens are working at one time. The benefit of set dining is, of course, a benefit for the cruise, for the company and the staff, because it means that all the staff are just working twice at 2 different settings, so it's easier for them to get all the meals out at one time. Whereas with anytime dining, it's a benefit for the passengers because then we can choose when we want to go and sit and when we want to eat, so that we can plan our day around the shows and the other activities that are happening on the ship. So that was a good option. The next great thing about going on a Carnival cruise is that there is a less formal dress code, and that means that you can really relax and you don't have to worry about, having the best attire. You can leave all your suits and long dresses at home because it is a mostly relaxed dress code. This was a really great benefit for us because we were traveling from England. We were traveling with just hand luggage, so that meant that we didn't have to make space for ball gowns or high heel shoes. So we were able to dress comfortably and casually and not feel out of place because that was the dress code for this Carnival cruise. There were options for dressing up if you wanted to, and there was an evening of entertainment where the captain of the ship was available, where you could take formal photos with him. Some people did that. Not that many people actually chose to dress up. So if you wanted to dress up, you could, but you didn't have to. You weren't obliged to do it. The next great thing about going on this Carnival cruise was the late night snacks. It was really nice to know that you could get food almost any time during your stay on the ship. Some ships, for example, the Ambassador Cruise Line, they shut up shop at around 9:30, and after 9:30 you can't get any food at all. They do have a half an hour time between 11 and 11:30 where waiters come around with little snacks, but not very substantial, and if you're not in the main area you will miss it. Whereas on the Carnival cruise you were able to get late night pizza and other snacks if you wish, so that was fantastic, because when you're on a cruise there is only one or two things you can do. You can either sit and watch the shows and drink, or you can eat, or you can drink. And because I don't drink that much, I went for the eating option, so it was great to be able to go and get a pizza when I wanted to. Okay, the not so great things about going on this Carnival cruise. The first was the boarding procedure. When I printed off our boarding cards, I wasn't able to put in my sister's name. So I was told that I'd be able to sort it out once I got to check-in. So when we got to check-in, the people who checked us in scrutinized the paperwork, and it felt like as if they were treating us like criminals, as if we were trying to, I don't know, stow away on the cruise ship. It took about 4 or 5 different people to look at the paperwork, to check our passports before they let us on the ship. And it just felt like it was really an overreaction to something that should have been quite straightforward. We had our passports, we had our boarding cards, they had all the information on their computers, so I don't know why it took them so long to actually sort everything out. So that wasn't a really great start to our cruise, but eventually they did let us get on, so yes. The next not so great thing about the Carnival cruise is that there wasn't a kettle in the cabin. There was no kettle in the cabin, which meant that I couldn't make my morning cup of tea and I couldn't make my nighttime cup of tea, which as a Brit I was really disappointed. Actually, it wasn't so bad, but yeah, I did miss it because I'm the tea drinker. My sister didn't miss it because she doesn't drink tea, so she didn't really care. But yeah, I wish we did have that, but it just meant I had to actually get out of the room to go up to the buffet to get my tea, which was fine, but it would have been nice to have that in our cabin. The other thing we didn't have was that we didn't have that many USB ports, which meant that we were lucky that we actually took an adapter with us so that we could plug in our phones. And if we had laptops or tablets, I'm not quite sure what we would have had to do, because it's like everyone has at least one thing they need to plug into a USB port. So most ships have actually updated and installed, more ports. So that's one thing that maybe Carnival Cruises might want to look into, or maybe they're actually doing that. Who knows? The next not so great thing was the food. Now, the good thing is that there was a lot of it. The not so good thing was that it wasn't really that great. The best thing that we had was the burger and fries that we got on the first day as soon as we got on the ship, but the food standard was downhill from there. The options were, well, there wasn't that many options, and the portion sizes were big, but the taste wasn't great. The consistency of certain things wasn't great. Certain foods were rubbery, certain foods were cold, and yeah, wasn't so good. The breakfast buffet and the lunchtime buffets, it was usually chaotic because, I don't know, some people just don't understand the notion of queuing, and also the style of the ship meant that it was really difficult to find out where you should stand, where you could stand, and the lack of staff made it even harder to make sure that people got their food and could get moving. So that was, it wasn't such a great thing. Such a shame because, food is really important. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised actually, because they did have some restaurants where you had to pay to eat there, and maybe they decided that they wouldn't put too much effort into the standard food, and if you wanted really great meals, you'd have to, upgrade and pay. But that was a bit of a shame. The next not so great thing was the overall entertainment. Now, on cruises, you expect to have theatre shows, musicians, and sometimes you get comedy acts. Well, this cruise had all three. The musicians, the self-contained bands, they were really good. They were really energetic and fun to listen to. The comedians, they had a couple of comedians who were really good, and they had a couple of comedians who were terrible. But the fact that they had so many comedians was just, it was too much. Too many comedians. I think it's because they didn't have many theatre shows. The theatre shows that they did put on, the musical theatre productions, again, the performers were really energetic. They were really good, but the material that they had to work with was terrible. The choreography was terrible. It was really bad. Every evening we went, so many people just got up and left because it really wasn't good. And then the worst thing I would say is that because this was a Christmas cruise, there was a Christmas show, and for some reason they decided that it would be a really great idea to get the children from the kids club to go up on stage and perform. Now, these children were performing songs that they didn't know, and I'm sorry, but these children, they were not good. And if you're not a parent and if you don't have any children, you were sitting there like me thinking, why on earth am I watching a bunch of kids who can't sing, who can't dance, and are not related to me? It felt like a primary school nativity play where parents, if you've got your children on stage, you'll love it. But if you don't, you're just thinking, what's happening? The worst thing was that the cruise director decided that it would be a really good idea to read a Christmas story on stage as a form of entertainment for an adult audience. He read the story of Jack Frost with children sitting around him on the stage, the rest of the theatre ensemble sitting and standing around him as well. And we were in the audience thinking, what the hell is this? Why are we watching this? But the thing is, we did watch it because it's that thing where you just sit there going, what's happening? Why is he doing this? Why did they decide that this was a good idea? So yeah, the entertainment really wasn't good. There was also a nightclub on this ship, but again, I don't know, because the average age I said was around 40 to 50 years old, the DJ decided that he was going to play the music he wanted to play, and the music he decided to play was music that was relevant for people who were most probably around in their 20s. And of course, there weren't that many people in their 20s. So when you looked on the dance floor, there were about 2 or 3 people, and yeah, it wasn't good. In comparison, when I went on the Ambassador cruise, the dance floor was full every night, and it didn't end until 2 o'clock in the morning because the DJ knew to play music that was geared towards the audience that were actually on the cruise and on the dance floor. Whereas the Carnival cruise, I felt like the DJ decided that, they didn't want to be there, so they're going to just play the music they wanted to play, and it was irrelevant if there were people dancing or not. So, yeah. The entertainment was not so great on our Carnival cruise. The next not so great thing about our cruise on the Carnival cruise was the destinations. Now, I can't blame the cruise line for this because, of course, these are destinations that ships will travel to. I'm sure all the other different cruise lines who travel on this, in this direction, in this area, also go to these ports. The stops were Catalina and Ensenada. I hope I'm saying those right. In Catalina, we weren't there for very long, and there wasn't really that much to see. I feel like maybe if you paid for an excursion, then you would be sent further than walking distance, and maybe that would be something that was more interesting to see. I mean, it was nice to get off the ship. We had to go on a tender to get from our ship to land, which was fine. And it was nice to walk around. So it was nice. It was a nice area to walk around, but not that much to see, and yeah, not that much to do. And then when we went to Ensenada, that felt like you were running the gauntlet to get from the ship into town, because there were so many vendors who were shouting at you because they wanted your business. It was either the shop owners or it was the restaurant owners. And you could even tell that they were so used to the shouting, you know, shouting out what business they had to offer and to get you into their place. They weren't even really looking at you, although you really didn't want to catch their eye, because then you wouldn't get rid of them. So I have to say, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable walking around, just because people were shouting at you, wanting to get you into their shops, or wanting you to buy something from their stalls, which is great if you're happy to do that, but it just felt a bit too much. I don't know, maybe it's my British reserve, but it was just like, oh, this is so awkward and uncomfortable. So I didn't really enjoy walking around the area. It didn't feel that welcoming. And so, yeah, we walked around for a bit. We saw some highlights in the town, but I have to say I was quite happy to get back on the ship. So those were my 5 great and 5 not so great things about going on a Carnival cruise. So would I recommend a Carnival cruise to anyone? The answer is, it depends. It depends what you're after. But based on my experience on this cruise, I would say no. But if I had an option of trying a Carnival cruise in a different location, going to a different destination, I would definitely give it a go, because I would want to see what it would be like to be on a different cruise ship, a different Carnival cruise ship, and also to see if there is a difference in a different port or on a different itinerary. At the moment though, I'm not rushing to get back onto a Carnival cruise. At the moment, I'm not rushing to get back onto a Carnival cruise, but I would be really interested to hear from people who have tried one, and to hear what your experience has been, and if you would recommend someone going on a cruise with Carnival. I don't think you can write off a cruise line based on one experience, so I would be really interested to be able to compare and contrast to see what it would be like to try again. So never say never. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed hearing about my experience on a Carnival cruise, maybe you'll be interested to hear about my experience on these other cruises.